this June, because it's Youth Month, I have with me some of our leaders from SAICE and from CESA as well, from our Future Leaders Panel. And we will be talking about reimagining the future of civil engineering and seeing it from their youth perspective. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
It's such an honor for me to come and interview you here. I really love the work that you do for SAICE, for the youth, and ensuring that our brand stays young and fresh, Mm-hmm. So let's start off with you, Pradeep. Can you start by introducing yourself, who you are, your journey thus far?
Thank you, Sakadi. My name is Prissy Sibia, Vice Chairperson of CESA YPF Gauteng South. I'm a candidate civil engineer at WSP. I've been with WSP for 3 years now in the Transport and Infrastructure Division, mainly geometrics. So that is me in a nutshell.
Stunning, pretty welcome.
Thank you.
Victor?
Hi guys, so my name is Victor Chibaya. I'm currently the chairperson of the SAICE Future Leaders Panel. And I got involved with SAICE through my involvement as a student when I was still studying at the University of Pretoria, and now I'm currently working as a structural engineer at SAICE.
Welcome, Victor.
Thank you, Sakadi. I'm Bokang Sitole. I'm a professional civil engineer, currently working for Royal Haskon in DHV. I'm a project manager in the water division, and I'm so happy to be here to be with you guys.
Thanks for flying all the way from Durban for us.
Yes.
And yourself, Dlozi?
Thanks a lot for this opportunity. My name is Dlozi Mnisi. Currently the immediate past chair of the Future Leaders Panel in SAICE. And by work, I work for the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements as a construction project manager. And my involvement within SAICE has spans long since my university days. So it's quite a pleasure to actually be on this platform and engage more about the issues that the youth face. So thanks a lot for the invitation.
A lot of you have been serving in SAICE and CESA and the voluntary associations within our industry for a few years, and you've come across a lot of new innovative ways of doing engineering. You've come across a lot of changes within the regulatory space and as well through academia. What, in your opinion, do you think the civil engineering profession would look like in 10 years' time?
I think it's going to look like drastic advances in technology. We're talking 4IR as like the denominator of it all. We're talking a lot of automation. We're going to talk AI, and already as is right now, even regulatory is a bit slow following technology, but I think all of that will change because we'll be drastically moving towards a future where technology is reimagined and it's making our lives easier. And the perspective that technology is here to take people's jobs, that perspective as well will be changed because people will realize we will be in a space where we can collaborate with technology and still be accommodating in our jobs.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's a nice perspective.
And then just to add on what Bokang was saying, I think that civil engineering, or like the infrastructure industry, will be more colorful and vibrant and energetic because the new generations that are coming, we're no longer like the stereotypical engineers. We're not just on the books, but you're seeing new types of engineers coming up who have energy, who are more creative, innovative, and those kind of people will change the industry to make it a bit more of a relatable thing, even to people who aren't too technical.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it will also be agile to our generation as well, and also future ready, because we are talking sustainability, we're talking how to mitigate climate risk as well. And we're also talking ethics, which is very important in responsibility. So I think that will really improve.
And I like that, what you're saying on ethics, because I like that our generation is very much aware of ethics now, and we're not scared to address it or talk about it publicly. So now the more conversations we have, I think it will be a nice environment as engineers.
I think maybe to add on to that, maybe like the angle I'd like to look at is from a client perspective.
Good.
Because I think within our environment, we find it that while, yes, the technocrats can be able to, come up with the systems, but also it's more about taking on the clients. We are seeing some of the clients having to actually push boundaries to say, try new technologies to cater for, sustainability within their development. So there is a lot of opportunities, but I think it requires like from a service provider's perspective, as being engineers, and also the clients that will be offering the work to actually come on board, to actually embrace the engineering that come here.
I like that. Because sometimes I feel like engineers are not seen, their opinion does not seem to matter. And we are only really involved in the project as a whole, and not necessarily like the bigger ecosystem of the industry. So, Bokang, you're the vice chairperson of our Future Leaders Panel. Congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you.
In your opinion, what do you think engineers need to thrive in this changing landscape? Like what we just talked about, for engineers of the future in 10 years' time, what skills do they need to have within them to be able to thrive?
So I like that our future is looking bright, because as Victor was saying, the Gen Z generation right now, what they will be bringing more onto the table is their strong digital and AI literacy, which we don't have, we're still battling even down to adjust, but they're coming with that. And I think that is great. And I like that also in the spaces that they occupy now, it seems they thrive on innovation, something I also don't think.
Give an example.
We were very strong.
Give an example.
So I've seen studies that are looking at sustainability, mainly green buildings, for instance. And it's something that's moving from countries that are very advanced, like Singapore, which is a prominent thing. And I've seen studies asking about that. How are we accommodative of sustainable materials, even in construction? And we have also seen them asking questions, how adaptive and adaptable are we in terms of AI accommodation and technology in the spaces that we have now, even in construction. We're talking digital twins now, apparently, in our spaces, and it's good because it seems like we're making strides towards that. So I like that, because then the coming generation will definitely just fit right in, and they'll advance towards a greater engineering space. And then what I think they need on top of that is what SAICE and EXA pushes as well. They need continuous learning. You need to keep following the trends. Look at emerging technologies. Just keep yourself up to date and make sure that in the spaces that you occupy, you're relevant at that point in time.
So, Rosie, as a past chairperson of Future Leaders Panel, going on from Bogang's point about upskilling ourselves and like continuous learning, do you think we are meeting that need currently, or is there some room for improvement?
I definitely think that there is a room for improvement. Look, what you find is there's, I call them sometimes barriers of entry. Sometimes can be cost. Sometimes can be exposure. And if from an organization's perspective, because ultimately one having to study, especially when it comes to like courses and certificates, one to actually upskill themselves, you'll find that previously you would have found companies actually taking on that initiative to make sure that we want to upskill our members in terms of them to develop. But what you're finding now is either it becoming a challenge in terms of the rates that come in terms of that consulting companies have, where there is a bit of companies not investing so much, which challenges us a lot. So what I think is that there is a room for improvement, meaning that the companies need to come on board to assist the young people specifically, so that they can attend courses, so that they are open to these opportunities that are out there. And in that, it will then help to shift the narrative towards saying that we have consultants who are not upskilling, and then because the SAICE has training courses that they have, and there's so many people can attend, but you can't do it, just with your salary. You need a support.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, just to add again on that is that to add like the benefit of what SAICE is doing related to upskilling and what Rosie is speaking about is that you don't know what you need to know. You see, so now the beauty about SAICE is that it creates all these platforms, websites, social media, panels, future leaders panels like us who tell people what they need to know. So that's a good way that SAICE is contributing to bridging that gap by allowing people to get an understanding of this is the industry, this is what you'll need to know. I mean, even this podcast is going to teach people what skills they'll need in the future based on what Bokang mentioned. And they'll upskill,
Well, it is also. So I think you just touching on the power of collaboration. Put in that we collaborate in the industry
to get to understand where we're lacking, because you cannot have it all. So with this kind of meetings and collaboration, you get to understand where are the gaps and how we can all work together to fill into those gaps. So collaboration is very important.
I like what you're talking about on collaboration, because we've just recently, we had a collaborative event with ICE, with the Hong Kong delegate. And you could see that we've been just sort of isolating themselves. The other people all over the world, they're just as determined to collaborate with us as we are with them. I mean, the Hong Kong delegation, one thing they stressed a lot was, please let's not let this meeting be the end of it. Let's look towards a collaborative effort between the two institutions in future. And I think that will be great and beneficial even for the youth, in the sense that it will be good for us to get outside of South Africa and the boundaries and the barriers that you talk about within South Africa, and just how far we can see. And it will be helpful to see how others do it, especially a country like China, which is super advanced. We need to learn from such countries and see what we can take from them and make it applicable for us. I mean, yes, of course, it's a long road, and then we won't be able to take or implement everything at this point in time. But it is worth the collaboration to learn and see what we can take currently and use now.
Yeah, true. Victor, as the current chairperson of our Future Leaders Panel, you've brought in a lot of energy and a lot of synergy within the various regions in South Africa. How do you think this level of youth activism that you and your team have harnessed within the institution can almost be replicated within South Africa as a whole?
So in terms of youth activism and its importance in getting the industry what to be and how we can harness it, I feel like the main thing, it's going to sound very Gen Z, but I suppose being one of the youngest on the panel, you know, but the main thing is that we need to make engineering cool. And I think that's the purpose of the activism, that there's two sides of things, where there's the technical side that we need to educate people. People need to understand what they need to do. They need to understand what engineers do. But now to target these Gen Z and to target the younger audience, it needs to be entertaining. It needs to be entertaining. So youth activism, it allows us to be represented to the public, to people who don't know the maths behind it, and they'll be able to see us and say, you know what, I want to be like that. You know, and then they'll start studying and start like aspiring to be engineers because they saw us and we gave a good example of what it is to be an engineer.
I loved your example yesterday when you were talking about how we can do a series around engineering. Can you give that example?
Yeah, no, so Kadi and I were at an event yesterday where I just brought up this idea about putting together like a series, which isn't a technical series, around engineering being an example of ways we can be like activists for engineers. Because if you think of other professions, accountants, doctors, lawyers, there's series and TV shows around that even we watch. And from seeing those, we'll never question a doctor when they say something. We'll never question a lawyer. And when we were kids, we wanted to be those people. So I think civil engineering isn't well represented at the moment, where there's nothing that's not a documentary that'll teach you about civil engineering. But if we could put together more lighthearted presentations, more lighthearted ways of delivering the message of this is what an engineer does. Have a movie maybe about a certain thing that happened and the way an engineer was involved as the main character. I think it'll just be a very exciting way to interact with engineering.
I think that's a challenge for that I'm putting to you guys. We do have the platform, we've got SAICE TV, so it would be really cool if you could put something together that we can like actually showcase, you know, through roadshows and the likes.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll see what we can do.
We'll put something up.
Josie, you're the only person here who works for the public sector, which is very important. I mean, we always as SAICE advocate for representation of engineers within the public sector. And within decision-making powers and the likes. So what are your thoughts on the current policies that govern our profession, and what changes need to be made so that they can develop our young engineers and support you in your journey to be able to achieve, you know, professionalism and competency, etc.?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I think it's technically become quite a privilege to actually work for a state government organization. What it has done is that it's exposed me to, I said, both sides of the coin. You know, having to become a member of SAICE and having to have seen the development of a working professional from a consulting perspective, and then also having to work for the government. What I can definitely say is that it is not a one-man show. Where from a policy perspective, unfortunately, government can make the policies, but somebody has to ultimately make sure that there's an implementation. So what has happened is that what I've seen with my department, we have incubator programs, and incubator programs where we take on construction companies predominantly to then say, look, you are a startup, we're gonna give you these type of projects, and in you having to develop yourself, then you can then at least upgrade yourself. But now what we are then finding is that most of them are not coming forth. There's challenges of compliance because we are a government department. It needs to be compliant. And then also something that we put within our contract as well is that there needs to be mentorship by consulting companies. And that as well, it must not become a tick box exercise, but it must become something that the consulting company in themselves, they take it upon themselves to ensure to see that this person is a skill and a resource, and tomorrow will be somebody who actually sustains the organization and also becomes an asset to the department, because if they're producing quality work, then it means that the quality work that as a government department we would have then procured as a service would become quality, even to our people. So I think when it comes firstly to procurement, upscaling, and having to make sure that we've got service providers that are compliant in terms of understanding the basics, I would call them, from business registrations and what they need to do to comply. And once you are able to then tick those boxes, as a professional, but also as a service provider, then I think what that will do is that it'll also assist in preparing the pool of young people. Because imagine all of us tomorrow, we have companies, but unfortunately they don't comply. She doesn't pay her people properly, he doesn't upskill his people, maybe with her, then you find that there's issues that are coming, in terms of technical acumen. And about can also become with me for ethics. My people who work with me, the young people, don't understand the importance of being ethical as a leader. So it's those type of things that we need to focus on, I think, from a legislative perspective, and also from SAICE to then advocate for such importance, that we need to have an industry that is standard driven, ethical, and also understands that we are doing a service to humanity. And in that being said, then I think we can have a good come with it.
I actually really enjoyed your view, and as SAICE, we will definitely ensure that we always advocate for those things, and to ensure that our industry is respected and it's respectable, and we have international alliances with the Engineering Alliance, with Washington Accord, with ICE in the UK. So definitely we need to keep those standards going from an industry perspective. So Pretty, you come from Consulting Engineers South Africa, which is a multidisciplinary organization of consulting engineers.
Yes.
When you look at what Victor has said, what Bokang has talked about, what Rosie has been speaking on, in terms of the industry and making it future ready, what practical steps can the industry take from public sector, education sector, private sector to ensure that we have future ready engineers?
I think we need to put collaboration as a core value in the projects that we're doing. Collaborate with other discipline, environmentalists, data analysts, because in complex projects, as a civil engineer, you won't be able to analyze all the data. So you need someone as a professional to get to foresee for you what the impact of in the project in the future, and also get to look at the environmental impact on the project, not just in high level, but in detail. Hence, it's important to collaborate with specialists in environments that we're doing, because we find that we're doing complex projects. We need to collaborate with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, get to understand everything that has to do with the project. And we also need to be accountable. You're talking about ethics. We need to involve ethics in the curriculum of students. We need to understand how important it is to be ethical in the industry, and the responsibility that they play and the role that they play in social justice. We need to advocate for that, and students need to be aware of what's happening out there in terms of ethics, and they also need to get exposure in the in the consulting space to understand the complexity of it and not just think I'm a civil engineer, I'm just going to be doing roads and that's it. You need to understand all the elements that come with doing a road. If you're doing a bridge, you need to understand everything that affects the bridge that you're doing. It's not just roads it's not just going to be the cars that are going to be passing. It's environment. How are you impacting the environment? If there's an earthquake, what's going to happen? You need a data analyst to be able to analyze all of this data. So we need to collaborate more and we need to go beyond compliance. We need to be more ethical, in fact, emphasis more on ethics rather than just my design is under, it's within the standards required by Gautrans, for example. But is it ethical? Because there's a thin line between complying and being ethical. So we need to get to look at compliance and ethical, and we need to take responsibilities of the work that we do. A lot of times we find that in big projects, the last people that are looked at is engineers, but actually it should be the first place that we go to when there's a problem in a project. Where's the engineer? What is it that they did? And we need to be accountable and responsible for the work that we do. Even when you leave a company, for example, people when they leave companies, whatever project that they did, it's no longer their problem. They're just out. But we need to be responsible. If you've worked on a project, if there's a problem in a project, be it you're registered or not, you're a candidate, you need to be responsible. You need to understand ethics and social justice.
That is part of the EXA code of conduct for any engineer who wants to register professionally. So we really also hope from a SAICE perspective that our engineers commit to that. So we're nearly coming to the end of our podcast, unfortunately. I think I want to know from each of you, what do you know now that you wish you'd known when you were a student?
Thanks for the question. I think that's a very good question to consider, especially when we're talking about youth issues. And having to have understood the platform that SAICE has played. For me, I'd say the importance of seeing yourself as an asset, as a brand, as an individual that is responsible for their own journey. The reason that I'm saying that is because for a long time, young people growing up, we tend to look outside of us, but never look within us in terms of achieving the things that we want to achieve. And we look at our challenges, and then therefore those challenges then for us, then it feels like limitations. But not knowing that the way I carry myself, the things I tell myself, the way I look at my environment and therefore then take it on or repel some things ultimately makes me. So having to have been at this part of my life, I am thankful that I was able to make slightly more good decisions that made me, I think, somebody who's upstanding within community and society. And therefore then to my younger self, I say, keep going, keep doing what you're doing, but also have confidence in yourself. You are
an asset.
You understand, you're an asset, you're a brand. Make sure that, my mom used to say to me, always wear a tie when you go to church. Because when you go to church and you're wearing a tie, it makes you look formal. Meaning presentation is important in anything you do. You go to work, you're a young person, you meet people, be presentable because you are a brand to yourself. So that's what I try to do as well. And with that, I'd like to say to all the young people, the future is definitely in our hands and you need to go out there and capture it. Thanks.
For me, I think I wish I had known that being an engineer is more than the hard skills and the technical skills that we learned during varsity. I think had I known that before, maybe I would have worked towards that in line with the hard skills that I learned. Because now it's like I'm playing catch up with the soft skills that I missed out on. And then you only realize now that the combination of the two, in essence, will actually make you a great leader at the end, because we work with people, so you can't avoid people. So I'd like to say to our future engineers, you're not just an engineer, you're not going to be closed out in your cubicle or in your little world alone designing all by yourself. No. You're going to be exposed to people, so you need to those soft skills.
I love that. I had to learn that quite late in my career, and I made a lot of mistakes leading people. I love that, and always remember that.
Yeah, no, I think from my side, something I wish that I knew earlier was that you need to talk to people, make friends when you're in varsity, make connections, make networks, because something that we did is that we're very, or I don't know myself, I was very, selective. So I'd be in class, I know the civil engineers. I think my entire varsity, I was very much friends with civil engineers. And then it's only when you get out that you realize that you need to collaborate, you need to know people everywhere, When you have projects, when you're bidding for things, you need to put together a team of people in different disciplines. So it's very important that we collaborate and talk to people and interact with people, even from school level, from the first year you start working, just so that you have a network of people in the entire infrastructure industry, so that when the need does arise, you guys can talk to each other and share knowledge and experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, for me, a social responsibility. I think when I was a student, it was hard for me to get to understand where I fit into people, what value do I bring. It was more like, I'm an engineer, I'm going to make money. But now I got to understand what engineers do and their social responsibility, which holds so much weight than school is. It's like putting it out there, what weight we're holding. Doctors from the get-go, they understand that in life is literally in your hands. But same with us engineers, lives are in our hands. The structures that we're building, it's people, it's communities that we're serving. So it's getting to understand social responsibility. So for young people that are pursuing civil engineering, I just like to say that it's people that we're serving. So we need to be mindful of everything that we're doing and take responsibilities, because we're serving people. So it's either you're doing good, or you're impacting the society not in a good way. So whatever it is that you're doing will definitely impact the society.
I wish I was like you guys when I was younger. So in closing, what is the one bold idea that FLP commits itself to in this year that you will achieve?
There's a lot of things that we're trying to achieve, where one of the main ones, I think our main initiative is professional registration. Through some initiatives that Bokang is leading through for the FLP, we're trying to encourage people to get professionally registered, if they're not yet at that stage, to at least understand the importance of it so they can prepare for it early on. Because within the industry, there's all this responsibility that we have, but it really only comes onto us once we're professionally registered. So we need to get people competent and ready to take on that responsibility as soon as possible.
I love that. Okay, you can tell me the second bold idea that you have for the year that you will achieve.
No, I can't
Vice
think.
Chairperson?
Can you think of anything else?
The second board idea that we're cooking up now is basically personal financial management and literacy. Why? Because from our personal learnings, we have found that from graduating, you see your contract, you see the zeros that you offered, and somebody tells you afford this, and that. And you just jump right in and you're like, no, I want it all. If they say I afford it, I want it all. But then it's now that you later learn that no, it's not as easy as that. There's more to financial literacy that could have actually avoided a lot of financial mistakes that we made. And I think from the FLP, we on the same page in wanting to share that knowledge and make sure that other people don't make the same mistakes that you made. So we are definitely going on for a financial literacy drive for all the branches nationally.
I think maybe to add on to that, something that is more close to home from SAICE perspective, something that we have set our sights on was to ensure that there is participation for members within the organization. And why is this important for us is it then exposes members to opportunities. We have so many young members. Victor has mentioned that we're trying to make engineering cool. So by making engineering cool, you can only be cool if you're inside the group. So we want all the people who are outside of the group to actually come into the group. So from an FLP perspective, making sure that all the branches have a FLP committee. That is the boldest thing. What that means, it means we have structure. So, and we'd like that to come across within all the places. Technically, we must have young people that are technically involved within SAICE contributing, and also having to actually impart their knowledge and share, and also that part of mentorship.
Yeah.
That's what we're speaking about. So as FLP, those becomes our core pillars to make sure that this year we achieve. So yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. These are our future leaders. The future is indeed bright, and engineering will indeed become cooler. Because we really have amazing technical minds here. We've got great leadership. We've got great vision and strategy coming from our Future Leaders panel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy Youth Month.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.